Right now, I am at the Ardennes American Cemetery. And if you've watched this channel for any amount of time, you know that we really place a high value on visiting places like this to honor those who served and to tell some of their stories. Now, this is a cemetery that we've already been to. We were here with 4 veterans of the Second World War earlier. Unfortunately, we had some weather issues and couldn't stay very long. But we wanted to come back to show this place and to tell some of the stories of the men who fought in this area in the Second World War. Alright, well, this is the Ardennes American Cemetery. Now, the site of this cemetery was originally liberated by the U.S. 1st Infantry Division on the 8th of September 1944, and then again was re-liberated during the Battle of the Bulge. And there was a temporary cemetery that was established on this site on the 8th of February 1945, and then after the war it was designated as a permanent cemetery here in the area. This is the final resting place of over 5,300 Americans. Something that's kind of unique about this cemetery is about 65% of the fallen here are airmen from the U.S. Army Air Forces, so a lot of downed bomber crews and fighter pilots. But yeah, we're going to spend a little time looking at a few of the graves here. One thing about walking these cemeteries is it's an opportunity to learn, not only about some of the stories of some of these men, but kind of, what these different guys went through. So, for example, here's the grave of a Merl Weber right here. And says that he was in the 12th Regiment of the 4th Infantry Division, died November 16th, 1944. So, again, here's an opportunity to learn. You can look up where the 4th Infantry Division was during that period of time and get an idea of where it was that he lost his life. So for Merl Weber, most likely around the Hurtgen Forest. So right here, next to this unknown soldier, well, we have the grave of Edward Llot. He was a U.S. Army Ranger, and if you look at the date of his death, let's see, it's August 19th, 1942, and that is really early. That is before Operation Torch. Well, Llot was one of 3 Americans that was killed on the Dieppe raid, again in August of 1942, and was the first American to be killed by Germans on land during World War II. He was wounded a few times and was caught by enemy crossfire in his attempts to reach a machine gun nest. All right, now this is the grave of Sergeant Frederick Bruner, and this one is really interesting to me because, as you can see, it says that he is a sergeant in the U.S. Marine Corps. And you might be thinking, why is a Marine in the European theater? I thought that Marines were only in the Pacific theater, and that's largely true. Bruner was part of a Marine detachment that was with the U.S. Embassy in London, but kind of behind the scenes, he was assigned to the OSS, or the Office of Strategic Services, which was kind of a forerunner to the CIA. In March, he parachuted into Germany with something called Operation Chisel, where they were gathering information to report on German troop movements, and died when his plane crashed in bad weather. Yeah, but there's a Marine buried here at the Ardennes American Cemetery. Now here's another grave of a guy who was connected with Operation Chisel. This is Kurt Gruber. He was actually a German from the Ruhr area, and he was recruited to help fight against the Germans. He was a communist. Now, again, Churchill was no friend of the communists, but it's kind of the situation where the enemy of my enemy is my friend. So Gruber went on this same mission and was going to collect intelligence on German troop movements, and then, was also killed in the same mission that killed Frederick Bruner. Now here's a really interesting grave. This is the final resting place of Quitman Walker. Quitman Walker was born in Tillman, Mississippi, and was a fighter pilot and graduated in 1943 from the Tuskegee Army Airfield in Alabama. So Quitman was one of the Tuskegee Airmen. He was with the 332nd Fighter Group, flew a P-51 Mustang that he nicknamed the Coordinator. P-51 is one of my favorite planes from World War II. So he flew 29 missions. The 29th would prove to be his last. They were on a strafing mission in Hungary and Austria, taking out like horse-drawn vehicles and things like that. And his plane was hit by anti-aircraft fire, and he was killed there. Well, as you can see, we are now standing in front of the final resting place of a Medal of Honor recipient. This is John Gierstad. He flew a B-24 Liberator in World War II, and in August of 1943, he was part of Operation Tidal Wave. This is a pretty well-known mission where 179 B-24s took off to bomb the oil fields of Ploiești, Romania. So on the way, his plane was hit, but he ignored, the fact that he could land the plane, continued on, dropped his bombs, but then after the bombs were released, there was a fire in the aircraft that became too intense and made further progress impossible, and he ended up crashing his B-24 into the target area. Alright, got another Medal of Honor recipient here in the Ardennes American Cemetery. This is the final resting place of Charles Carey Jr. He was a tech sergeant with the 100th Infantry Division, and you can go online and read his citation, but he is awarded the Medal of Honor not for really one event, but a whole series of events over the course of a couple of days. Basically, their platoon, he was in an anti-tank platoon, got overrun by about 200 enemy infantrymen and 12 tanks, and he ended up organizing these patrols to go and rescue cut-off squads, and then he was clearing houses by himself and taking prisoners, and it's really a wild story. And unfortunately, he ended up being killed by a sniper in that action. But yeah, here is the final resting place of Tech Sergeant Carey. As I was walking along here, I happened to look at a couple of headstones. One for a Richard Chin, who was in the 75th Infantry Division from California. And if you look, it says that he died on December 24th, 1944, was in the 290th Infantry Regiment. And then right next to him is Albert P. Fishos, who was in the same regiment from Colorado, died on the same day. And graves with dates like this on them, with major holidays or something, always really get to me. So both of these men died on Christmas Eve, and you know that for their families, for the rest of their lives, a time that's usually marked with happiness and celebration and joy, had to have a twinge of sadness as they remembered their son or husband or brother. Here's one that is really kind of interesting. Now, I'm not going to try and pronounce that name because I would just mess it up. But you can read it for yourself. But what's interesting is this is a civilian with the OSS who died in France on February 24th, 1945. So, yeah, we'll have to go in and try and do a little research on this guy. When you come to the cemetery, one thing that you'll notice as you walk among the headstones is that there are a lot of airmen who are laid to rest here. Well, here at the memorial at the head of the cemetery, well, they have the names of those who are missing from both the U.S. Army and the Army Air Forces. But as you look, so many of these names are from guys who were in the Army Air Force. As I mentioned at the beginning of this video, we were already here with 4 veterans from the Second World War who were traveling with Andrew Biggio, who's the author of The Rifle. And the weather unfortunately turned against us that day. But here's a little bit from our previous visit. So he was from New York?
Yeah.
November 29th.
Where were you at the end of November?
I was in the Hurricane Forest.
Is this the man that died in the hurricane?
Yeah, he died in the hurricane.
When the new ones we just got in, they got killed right away.
What kind of stuff goes through your mind visiting places like this?
What goes through my mind? So awful sorry. We lost so many up there in the Hurricane Forest. It's the worst battle, I think, in the European theater of World War II. And very few people know about it. The hurricane, we bypassed the Ardennes and all things going through the first time, and we turned around and tried to go through the hurricane, which was heavily defended. That was a mistake. Other than that, I guess there's not that much we can say about it.